Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. This is Land Law episode 5. We have 3 issues to discuss today. We are going to learn more about jual janji, liens holder caveat and the right to take possession. Let's get into it. But before that, don't forget to subscribe, okay? Enjoy! The issue is whether Bada can refuse to accept the payment of the loan unless Salim pays an additional sum of 1,000 ringgit, being payment for the service charge. Jual janji is a type of security transaction and is categorized as a type of personal law transaction widely done by the Malay Muslim community that evades payment of usury, which is also known as riba. In the case of Tengku Zahara, the court acknowledged that jual janji is intended to provide for a procedure for securing a loan without infringing on the prohibition of usury. The literal meaning of the term is promise sale or conditional sale. In basic terms, jual janji is a sale of promise in the form of a conditional sale in which the land is used as collateral to finance a personal loan. There is no specific provision that governs jual janji under the National Land Code. It is not part of the dealings nor recognized as a security transaction except for charge and lien. However, the concept of to transfer and to retransfer in the jual janji process is embedded in the NLC. Additionally, jual janji can be recognized as a customary security transaction pursuant to Section 4, subsection 2 of the NLC.
Applying to the given situation, Bada is the lender while Salim is the borrower. Salim has used his land as collateral to secure a loan worth 15,000 ringgit from Bada with the understanding that the ownership of the land will be retransferred to him upon full payment. The security transaction that took place was called jual janji. However, given that it was not registered, the jual janji is an unregistered jual janji and is not endorsed by the land office. This is completely legitimate as explained in the case of Tengku Zahara and Che Yusof, whereby Malay customary law practices are acknowledged in courts, hence give legitimacy to jual janji as a security transaction.
When there is a dispute, the court needs to interpret whether jual janji is first a contract to sell land for valuable consideration subject to a collateral contract for retransfer, or second, a security transaction subject to being redeemed by the borrower upon full payment of the loan. If the jual janji is a contract to sell, then a contract is subject to being retransferred within a certain time frame, where the general rule is that time should be made the essence of the contract. On the other hand, if the jual janji is a security transaction, the borrower must be permitted to redeem the land even after the expiration of the term. This is because the party's only objective was to utilize the land as a security for the loan.
Applying to the given situation, first, it is crucial to highlight that the court will construe Bada and Salim's intentions as a whole when they made the agreement. Here, it can be seen that Salim had the intention of borrowing 15,000 ringgit with a valuable consideration, which is the Hulu Langat land. Furthermore, Bada intended to retransfer the Hulu Langat land back to Salim upon full repayment of the loan within 1 year as the stipulated period. Nonetheless, since there is a dispute between them, it must be determined whether the jual janji created between Bada and Salim is a contract to sell or a security transaction. If it is a contract to sell, Bada may keep the Hulu Langat land when Salim fails to pay 15,000 ringgit before the stipulated date, which is on the 10th of March 2022. Meanwhile, if it is a security transaction, then if Salim fails to pay, even after the 10th of March 2022, Salim is still allowed to redeem the Hulu Langat land from Bada. Given the circumstances, Bada and Salim have entered into an agreement on the 10th of March 2021 whereby Salim will purchase the Hulu Langat land from Bada within 1 year from the date the agreement is executed. Here in the present situation, it is clearly evident that time is made the essence of the contract, since they have agreed that before 10th of March 2022, Salim must have repaid the loan in full worth 15,000 ringgit to Bada in order for him to redeem the Hulu Langat land.
Despite that, it is the court's power to determine whether the jual janji is a contract to sell or a security transaction. The jual janji transaction has 2 types of interpretation by the courts, which are the strict interpretation and the liberal interpretation. Firstly, for the application of jual janji through the court's strict interpretation, the general rule is that time is of the essence in the contract. This means that the collateral agreement and the transfer of land are viewed purely on the basis of the contract of sale. This means that failure to comply with the time limit will cause the court to render no assistance at all to the aggrieved party. In Haji Abdul Rahman v Hassan, the court propounded that if the borrower failed to comply with the terms of the contract, the court would not assist him to invoke the terms of the agreement, such as obtaining a retransfer of the land. The court in Wong Si Land v Saraswati Amal affirmed Haji Abdul Rahman's case, whereby in cases where the arrangement was not a security transaction but a contract to repurchase, the court has no power to extend the contract to a period for the exercise of the option to repurchase once it has expired. On the other hand, under the liberal interpretation, the court is of opinion that the collateral agreement for a retransfer in the jual janji transaction is in the nature of an equitable security transaction, whereby the right to redeem remains irrespective of whether the period for repayment had lapsed.
Based on past decided cases, it is evident that the Malaysian courts are inclined to apply the strict interpretation when deciding whether the jual janji is a contract to sell or a security transaction. In accordance with Bada's situation, since time is made of the essence of the contract, the court will denote that Bada and Salim's agreement is viewed purely on the basis of a contract of sale. In other words, if Salim fails to pay within the stipulated time, which is before 10th of March 2022, Salim will not be able to claim the Hulu Langat land back from Bada. Similar to the case of Haji Abdul Rahman and Hassan, it indicates that the failure of Salim in complying with the time limit will cause the court to render no assistance at all to him in claiming the land back.
However, there are several exceptions made known to strict interpretation. First, it is when the lender agrees to grant an extension of time to make full repayment. Second, it is when the lender refuses to accept payment or evades payment. The relevant exception to be discussed in this question is the second exception, which involves the refusal of the lender to accept payment and evading payment. Here, the lender should not just refuse the payment made by the borrower during the specified time. He also should not impose new conditions which were not discussed earlier in the agreement in order to accept payment. Thus, if the lender acts like the above mentioned circumstances, it shows the intention that time is not regarded as the essence of the contract. In the case of Hatijah Binti Rajab v Abdul Sa'ad, the borrower tried to make repayment of the loan, but the lender refused to accept and claimed the transfer was made under a direct sale transaction and not a promissory sale agreement. The court held that it is obvious that the land was used as a collateral and held that there was a valid jual janji agreement, while in Ali Asad Ismail, the lender refused to accept the payment and asked for an increase in payment. The court held that, provided the borrower pays, he can redeem back the land.
Applying to the given situation, the relevant exception that can be applied in Bada and Salim's circumstance is the second exception, whereby the lender evades payment. Here, it is evident that Salim had tried to settle the loan with 15,000 ringgit when he approached Bada on the 2nd of March 2022, which indicates that there were 8 days remaining before the time limit. Bada, as the lender, could not just refuse the payment made by Salim on the 2nd of March 2022. Also, he could not just impose new conditions which were not discussed earlier in the agreement in order to accept payment from Salim, according to the case of Aliasa Ismail. Here, the new condition that was imposed is for Salim to pay an additional payment of 1,000 ringgit as a service charge. It was not stipulated nor agreed between Bada and Salim to have a service charge on the 10th of March 2021 when they both executed the agreement. Hence, Bada's actions of not accepting the payment denote that he is evading payment in accordance with exception 2. Thus, since Bada has acted that way, it connotes that he had made time no longer the essence of the contract. Similar to the case of Hatijah binti Rajab, as long as Salim pays back 15,000 ringgit to Bada, Salim can redeem the Hulu Langat land from Bada.
In conclusion, Bada must retransfer back the Hulu Langat land to Salim, as their circumstance fall under the second exception, whereby Bada evaded the payment by imposing extra 1,000 ringgit charge when Salim approached him on the 2nd of March 2022. This also indicates that time is no longer made the essence of the contract, so as long as Salim pays 15,000 ringgit, Bada must return the Hulu Langat land to him. Moving on, we will look into the second issue for today.
The issue is whether the liens holder caveat lodged by SEMI on the 3rd of February 2022 is valid.
According to Halsbury Laws of England, lien is the right of one man to retain the property belonging to another man until certain demands of the man in possession of the goods are satisfied. Section 281, subsection 1 of the NLC provides 4 prerequisites of a statutory lien. Firstly, there must be a registered property or lessee. Secondly, there must be a deposit of issue of document of title. Thirdly, there must be an intention to create a lien. Fourth, there must be an entry of lien holder caveat. Moreover, Section 281 subsection 1 states that a lien can be created by the proprietor of alienated land, co-proprietor of undivided share, or a registered leaseholder.
In the given situation between Sami and Salim, there are 4 elements that Sami needs to fulfill according to Section 2811 of the NLC before he can lodge a lien holder caveat over the Shah Alam land. Here, Sami is the lender of the loan worth Rm50,000. Meanwhile, Salim is the borrower who deposited the IDT of the Shah Alam land. Lastly, Salim's brother is the registered proprietor of the Shah Alam land as he owns the land.
In Peter Pishan and Ramaswamy Shetty, the court affirmed that the right to deposit title as security for a loan is restricted to the proprietor only. However, the lender may part with the IDT provided that the lien is a statutory lien. So this is the law prior to 2008. After 2008, in Hong Leong Finance Berhad, the court held that the registered proprietor may deposit his IDT as a security for a third-party loan. It was affirmed that Section 281 subsection 1 speaks of the registered proprietor depositing his IDT as a security for a loan, but it does not specify the borrower, and neither does it restrict the loan to be released to the registered proprietor. Thus, the loan may be a loan to a third party.
Applying to the recent interpretation of Section 2811 of the NLC derived from the case of Hong Leong Finance Berhad, a lien over the Shah Alam land may be created by the registered proprietor, which is Salim's brother, and also a third party such as Salim himself. The law no longer limits the lien to be lodged by the registered proprietor only, which is Salim's brother, as far as after 2008.
The element that is most pertinent to be discussed is the element of intention to create a lien. The intention does not need to be expressly documented, as it can be in oral or written form. When there is no written form, the intention can be ascertained by the courts by determining the conduct of the parties.
In discussing the element of intention to create a lien in the given situation, Salim is a third party who deposited the IDT of the Shah Alam land to Sami for the purpose of acquiring the Rm50,000 loan. Here, the registered proprietor of the land is Salim's brother. 2 intentions are needed. Firstly, the intention of Salim as a borrower who deposited the IDT of the Shah Alam land to Sami. Based on the given situation, the actions of Salim clearly show that he has the intention of creating a lien over the land as it is a security for the Rm50,000 loan that he took from Sami. Secondly, there must be an intention that can be proven either expressly or by a written document, or a clear intention based on Salim's brother's action to deposit the land before a lien can be lodged by Sami. This is due to the fact that the IDT belongs to Salim's brother.
With regards to the intention to create a lien, there is a consequence as to when the IDT is obtained through fraud or misrepresentation. In the case of Nalamal and Karupanan, a lien holder's caveat was lodged based on an IDT which was obtained through fraud, whereby the deposit of IDT as a security in this case was not authorized by the proprietor. The court held that such lien holder caveat which obtained through fraud or misrepresentation is liable to be removed because the element of intention to create a lien is not satisfied. Thus, there is no lien created.
Applying the state law to the given situation, the IDT of the Shah Alam land, which belongs to Salim's brother, was obtained with fraudulent misrepresentation on the part of Salim. This is due to the fact that Salim did not tell his brother the true purpose of acquiring the possession of the IDT of the Shah Alam land, which is to be deposited to Sami as a security for his Rm50,000 loan. Here, Salim committed a fraudulent misrepresentation when he told his brother that he wanted the IDT for the purpose of subdivision at the registry office. it can be seen that Salim's brother, who is the owner of the IDT of the Shah Alam land, does not have the intention to create a lien for the Shah Alam land towards Sami, as Salim's brother did not know of the true purpose of such request. Similar to the case of Nalamal and Karupmanan, the IDT deposited to Sami from Salim is obtained through fraud whereby it was not authorized by Salim's brother. Here, the element of intention to create lien is not satisfied, and there is no lien created by Sami towards the Shah Alam land due to the fraud in obtaining the IDT by Salim. In conclusion, the lien holder's caveat lodged by Sami on the 3rd of February 2022 is invalid by virtue of Section 2811 of the NLC, as the element of intention to create a lien is not fulfilled. This is because the intention of the registered proprietor, who is Salim's brother, was unauthorized and was attained through fraudulent misrepresentation made by Salim.
The issue at hand is whether the bank Damai Hati Berhad is entitled to the right to take possession of the charged shophouse as a remedy for Hussein's default on his payment towards the loan to Damai Hati Berhad Bank.
Firstly, there are two types of statutory remedies that are discerned in the NLC, which are sale and possession. In Kimlin Housing Development's Berhad case, the court expounded that the remedies available to the chargee are those enumerated in the NLC, and the remedies are exhaustive and exclusive, in which the parties cannot contract out of the NLC. The most pertinent statutory remedy for our discussion is the right to take possession. In the event of the charger breaching the agreement between the chargee, for example by failing to repay the loan, the chargee is bestowed upon with the right to enter into possession of the charged land. The purpose of this right is to attempt to recover some of the debt due by the charger, especially where the land is unable to be sold because of the state of market. By virtue of Section 272, this right only applies to the first chargee only if there are more than one charge. To add, in accordance with Section 271A, AA and B of the NLC, this right is restrained as it is not applicable to any land held under land office title or the corresponding form of qualified title. Secondly, any charge of an undivided share in alienated land, and lastly, any town or village land not falling within paragraph A and B exercisable only insofar as the land is not occupied by the charger.
In the instant case, it is of the pertinence to classify the chargee and also the charger. The chargee is Bank Damai Hati Berhad, as it is lending the loan of 250k to Hussein. Meanwhile, Hussein is a charger as he charged his shop house as a security transaction. However, Hussein has defaulted in his payments towards the loan to Bank Damai Hati Berhad due to him suffering a loss. It is clear-cut that Hussein has breached the agreement between him and also Bank Damai Hati Berhad, as he promised to pay the loan of Rm 250k accordingly. This renders the Bank Damai Hati Berhad entitled to remedies to recover the damage that has been done by Hussein, which is left with two options. Firstly, order for sales. Secondly, the rights to possession. Bank Damai Hati Berhad cannot seek any other remedies outside of the orbit of the National Land Code, as the remedies are comprehensive and final, as aligned with the case of Kimling Housing Sedang Berhad. Suppose that Bank Damai Hati Berhad opted for right of possession as provided under Section 270 of the NLC. There are few matters that must be weighed by Bank Damai Hati Berhad. By upholding Section 270, Subsection 1, Paragraph A, Paragraph AA, and also Paragraph B of the NLC, firstly, Bank Damai Hati Berhad must ensure that there's only one chargee in the said charge, which is crystal here that Bank Damai Hati Berhad is the sole chargee. Secondly, it must be contemplated that whether the shop house owned by Hussein is registered under Registry of Title or Land Office Title. It's up to presume that the shop house owned by Hussein is a property registered under registered title. As final title, grant or state lease or qualified title is usually written as QT, R, HSD and PN. The title of the said shop house is number HSD 2003 PT number 34 Mukim and District of Shah Alam, which further connotes that the land is basically registered under registry title and not land office title.
There are two manners of taking possession, which are taking actual possession and taking constructive possession respectively. In accordance with Section 2711B and 2711A of the NLC, taking actual possession signifies that the chargee goes into possession by himself, whilst taking constructive possession means that the chargee receives the rents payable by a tenant or lessee respectively. Yet, the most relevant manner of taking possession in this discussion is actual possession. On a further note, any chargee intending to take possession of any land pursuant to Section 271 of the NLC is required to serve notice of taking possession under Section 2721 of the NLC. For actual possession, if the chargee wishes to go into occupation of the charged property, he must serve a notice in Form 16K on the charger as elucidated in Section 2721B of the NLC. In accordance with Section 2723 of the NLC, if the charger refuses to relinquish possession of the land to the chargee may apply to the court for an order of vacant possession. On the other hand, for constructive possession, served notice is in the form of 16J on lessee or tenant and a copy on charger where he will be collecting rental from rent to the charger under any lease or tenancy as illuminated in Section 2721A of the NLC. It must be foregrounded that service of notice either in Form 16J or Form 16K is mandatory, which the failure to tender the notice will render the chargee's action of taking possession invalid. This is fortified in the case of Malaysia Credit Finance Berhad, where the chargee had sought possession but the action was dismissed since the chargee had not served the necessary Form 16K.
In the light of questions, Bank Damai Hati Berhad is left with two manners of taking possession, which is actual possession and constructive possession. If Bank Damai Hati Berhad were to choose the earlier manner, it would mean that Bank Damai Hati Berhad wanted to take possession of Hussein's shop house. This is because it is delineated in the facts of the question that Bank Damai Berhad served a notice of Form 16K in accordance with Section 272 Subsection 1, Paragraph B of the NLC to Hussein in April 2022. This means that Bank Damai Hati Berhad wants to take actual possession because Form 16K is served instead of Form 16J. Additionally, since Hussein and his family live at their shophouse above his restaurant, he must make a vacancy in the shophouse as it's eminent that Bank Damai Hati Berhad wants to take an actual possession over the shophouse. If Hussein somehow resists making a clearance over the shophouse by deadline stipulated by Bank Damai Hati Berhad in Form 16K, Bank Damai Berhad actually can apply to the court for an order of vacant possessions by virtue of Section 272, Subsection 3 of the NLC. Moreover, by endorsing the case of Malaysian Credit Finance Berhad, the application of Bank Damai Hati Berhad to take an actual possession over the shophouse will not be simply dismissed by the court, as a mandatory notice of Form 16K has been served to Hussein in April 2022. In conclusion, Hussein must vacate the shophouse as Bank Damai Hati Berhad is entitled to the right to take possession of the charged shophouse as a remedy for Hussein's default on his payments towards the loan of 250k. Otherwise, Hussein's refusal of vacating the shophouse may lead to an application for a court order of vacant possession by Bank Damai Hati Berhad by virtue of Section 272 Subsection 3 of the NLC.
That's all, guys. Thanks for watching.